Hello and welcome back to another episode of Craving Some Raven. And in this episode, we're finally going to be doing a deep dive of some draft prospects. And in today, we're going to be focusing on the edge rusher. Basically someone who's on the edge of your defensive line going after the quarterback. Um, the Ravens, as Ravens fans, we know Matt Judon, he might not be coming back. There's a lot of mystery what's going on. Now, I think Jihad Ward's also a free agent. Pernell McPhee, also a free agent. So a lot of our guys who are go ahead and get after the quarterback kind of guys, they, are not slated to come back. I do hope we re-sign Jihad Ward. Actually, I think we might have done that. I'm not too sure. Already coming at you with some false information, but I want the Ravens to re-sign Pernell McPhee. I think he'd be a great, uh, like, veteran presence on the defensive line. So we're gonna go over like my top 10 pass rusher guys, defensive end type guys in the draft. Going to be doing my top 10 on that. Probably going to go over some free agents, but this is going to be Ravens specific, and I do want to tell you what I was looking for. When it came to the prospects, I didn't have a chance to look at everybody, but I did spend a bunch of time today and yesterday looking over a bunch of these guys and watching game film of theirs and saying, hey, is this guy good for the Ravens? Is he going to improve our current situation, right? A lot of this, it's like, oh, this guy is better than this guy. You can rank your top 10, but let's say only 3 of these guys out of the entire class are going to be better than your guys that you currently have. You just don't know, and that's why I'd like to see them kind of fix this huge question mark that they have in free agency, so that way when it comes to the draft, they don't even need to worry about any of that. Their roster is filled out. Everything that they're getting in the draft is just a bonus because, like I said, you never want to have holes going into the draft. I've said that before, but this are getting to the quarterback. That's the Ravens' biggest question. That's kind of why I wanted to start there. I think there are some guys who show some promise in this year's draft. I think it is a weaker class when it comes to getting to the quarterback, but I still think there are some guys that are draft worthy, and I would be happy for the Ravens to draft. I think on my top 10 list, I got 3 guys that I put a star next to, guys that I would really want the Ravens to get. But even some of these guys, it's the value isn't there. Where they're probably slated to go in the draft, I don't think it would be worth taking them there. Something that took huge into account was size. I don't want the Ravens to sacrifice pass rush for ability to stop the run. I want big dudes on the edge who can get to the quarterback in a pass rush and also hold up their end of the bargain in the run game. I don't want them to be shorthanded in the situation, on a run play because they have their pass rushers in there. I want every single one of the Ravens pass rushers to also be good against the run. So I took size into huge account, but most importantly, it was about, rep by rep. Who's winning? Winning could mean different things on different plays. That's really how I keep a tally in my head. I don't really write much down. Sometimes maybe later on in the process, I will have all this stuff written up, so that way, things won't have to change. I won't have to rewatch everybody just to make sure I put them in the right list. But, it's all about just beating your man. Sometimes sacks aren't a full indicator of how good a pass rusher is because sometimes, offensive coordinator can know, hey, this guy's a good pass rusher. Let's either run it away from him, motion away from him, kind of scheme that one guy up. And so a lot of times when you're the best pass rusher on a team, you don't really have all the best stats, so you don't have the best tape because, the ball was never gone your way. You were triple teamed the whole game, So I'll go over my list, and then you can tell me where I'm wrong, because I'm sure my list does not match everybody's list. This is Ravens specific. I told you what I'm looking for. Size, being able to hold up in the run game, but also the ability to pass rush. But there's a certain point on my list where there are some smaller guys with good enough pass rush ability that it's like, I think the size it's not a big enough reason for them to jump these guys because of their they may be small, but their pass rush ability, I think, it will translate. So let's just get into the list. Get it get the list out first, so that way if you're not a Ravens fan, you're just here because you want to hear my rankings on these edge defenders, pass rushers, and those types of fools. Well, then I'll get it out of the way. So first on the list, first and foremost, is everybody knows it's Chase Young, Ohio State, big, tall, physical, excellent bend, the next great pass rush. Not going to be there when the Ravens get to draft at number 28. But here's something about Chase Young. If there was a question for Ravens fans, or I guess any other team out there, probably more likely another team because they might have the capital to do this. But if you had a guarantee that Chase Young was going to be as good as Myles Garrett, minus the whole helmet thing and all the he said, she said stuff that's going on right now, if you had that guarantee that Chase Young was going to be like Myles Garrett, what would you give up to move up in the draft for him? Getting to number 2, which is where he's perceived to go, or what if something haywire goes on in the draft and everyone starts trading up for quarterbacks, because that's really what can change everything. It's the quarterback, right? But if he somehow falls, let's say, to number 5, like out of nowhere, like what the hell? He's sitting there at number 5. This is Chase Young. What would you give up? Like if you were in the top 15 of the draft, what would you give up? Would you give up anything for Chase Young if you had a guarantee that he was going to be as good as Myles Garrett? And it's like, oh, you can say, you guarantee that he's going to be as good as Myles Garrett. But listen, these past couple of years, in each of the drafts, there's been like this top safe pass rush guy that everyone kind of agrees is one of the best players in the draft. And each and every single time, they work out in the league. Talking about the Bosa Bros, Myles Garrett. I feel like there was another one in there that I'm missing. And they all end up being as good as we think they're going to be. Maybe not perfection, but I mean, they end up being as good as their draft stock. So it's, with Chase Young, would you be willing to move up and get him? I don't know. But he is, one of the best pass rushers we've seen in a while. Might be better than the Bosa Bros. So that was number 1, but that's something you got to ask yourself. If there's a guarantee he's going to be that good, would you move up? So number 2 on my list, like I said, I'm going 1 to 10. I'll probably give some guys who just missed the list, but number 2 on my list is Yetur Gross-Matos. I hope I pronounced that right. Yetur Gross-Matos, the Penn State edge defender, number 99 at number 2. I know not a lot of people have him as high as I have him. Let's see, what is he listed at here? 6'5", 264. So a big dude. Like I said, I'm looking for big guys who can hold up in the run game, and that's what he does. He beats people with his hands, and when I was watching his tape, he was winning almost every single rep. He was getting pushed. He was getting around his guy. When he gets to the quarterback, he likes to strip the ball. Off the field is not a concern with him. I saw an interview with him. He seemed like a good dude. Probably going to go in the first round, going to be in that late first round conversation, so might be a possibility. And I have him as my number 2 guy. Just his consistency winning down in and down out. Obviously, everybody gets washed in at some point, but we're only talking about the positives right now. But like I said, big dude, but athletic enough, got enough bend, uses his hands well, seems pretty polished to me. I don't know why I've seen some lists and he's not the top guy for them. Maybe it's because he's not in the SEC, but that's my only guess. So he's my number 2 guy. I put a star next to him because I liked the way he plays. I liked how much he won, and I like his size. He played in the Big Ten. That's a huge conference, so the level of competition was there. Just saw him have some productive games at Penn State, and I mean, he was good. And the size, like I said, the size is what matters to me. So next, number 3 on my list is K'Lavon Chaisson, the LSU edge defender, 6'4", 250. Now this is your typical body beautiful first man off the bus. He's rocking that 18 at LSU, which apparently means something, so that's cool. But he's always got his shirt pulled up, his jersey pulled up. You're like, yo, look at my abs. Like, all right, we get it, bro. You're yoked, you're tall, and you're ripped. We get it. But this guy, he had some of his best performances up against the biggest competition. LSU had a great year this year, so he's going to be getting that bump. But they went and played Auburn their first test, and he has a great freaking game. They go and play Alabama. He has a great freaking game. And they went up in the championship, and he had a great game then. He shows up in big games, and I didn't mention that before that, but that is something I'm looking for. As a Ravens fan, I'm tired of them getting knocked out the first round of the playoffs. I mean, not the first round, but the first game that they play. I'm tired of seeing it. I want them to win a goddamn playoff game. And so I'm looking for guys that when it's their turn to shine, when it's the biggest game, the biggest stage for them, I want them to turn up. And Clavon Chason is one of those guys. Like I said, he was on the national championship team that always gives you a boost. So that's why I have him at number 3. So number 4 on my list is A.J. Epinesa. Iowa State edge defender, 6'6", 280. I mean, a unit. Absolute unit. That size translates. I've heard Daniel Jeremiah say that he has one of the highest floors of anybody in this draft. So I'm thinking he might go first round. So it's like, yeah, I think he'd be a great pass rusher. I think what he will do will translate. Big dude, big, powerful, excellent motor. Not going to win with speed, but going to win with power. Sets the edge. Just a guy that it looks like it's going to translate. There should be no reason it shouldn't translate. And for whatever reason, Iowa has a great track record of having people go into the NFL and have success. So he could be next in line, hopefully, maybe, possibly, if the Ravens want to draft him in the first round. I don't know. It's just some of these top guys, I think, these top 4 guys, they might go too high for the Ravens to draft them, for it to make sense for the Ravens to draft and give too much capital. So A.J. Epinesa, that's number 4 on my list. So number 5 on my list is Zach Bond, edge defender, Wisconsin, 6'3", 240. So here's where we're actually going smaller, where we got some smaller guys showing up on my list here. Zach Bond, super talented, excellent get-off. I'm just thinking the Senior Bowl. He showed out in the Senior Bowl. And when I was watching him, some of his other games, I forget which game I was watching, every single play, he's beating his guy. And it's one of those things. Listen, I know I'm looking for size. I'm sure he's not as prolific against the run, but even in the run, he got washed out just as much as even some of the biggest guys. They just get stuck where they're sitting, right? But he is smaller, but like I said, in the Senior Bowl, going against other guys coming into the NFL, he dominated. He had a great game, too. Like in the actual Senior Bowl, not just in the drills, He dominated during the game. Him and, I think it was Uche or Bradley and I can't remember. But both of those guys are on my list, too, because they also had good Senior Bowls. So, Zach Bond, smaller, but hell of a pass rusher. Probably going to go in the second round. I don't know, with that amazing Senior Bowl, he could go a little bit higher. It could push him up. That's why I think, if he was available in the third round, go for it. But if it's second round, that seems tough. I'd rather, the Ravens get a different position. That as a whole. Maybe I'll talk later about that, but I'll just continue down my list. So next on my list, I have Josh Uche Mama. And once again, this is he's a guy from Michigan, 6'1", 241, right? So smaller. This is another one of the smaller guys. But once again, at the Senior Bowl, was killing it. Getting after the quarterback, super disruptive. And that's really what it's all about, being disruptive, getting in the quarterback's face, making him throw off platform, getting to the quarterback, getting the ball. And Josh Uche is just another guy. He's excellent as a pass rusher, but he is small. So that's the only thing you have to worry about. But from what I've seen, super athletic, quick off the edge, and just great at getting to the quarterback. And I can almost copy and paste that to the next guy on the list, Bradley Anai. Another small guy, killed it at the Senior Bowl, went to Utah. Only 6'3", 257. But once again, just guy with excellent pass rush moves, smooth technique, and fast. Smaller and faster. At 240, it's like, oh, he's small. But yes, for the NFL, protecting the edge in the run game. We lost to a guy like Derrick Henry. Would you trust someone who's 240 up against Derrick Henry? Someone who's about 550 and runs like a 3.5. I don't know. But that's the thing. All these guys, these are my top pass rushers in the draft. But so are these guys better than what we have now? This is what you got to be asking yourself. So next, all right. So what number is this? So number 8 on my list is Marlon Davidson. He's more of a defensive line, not so much an edge. At Auburn, like listed everywhere online, but he played a lot on the Auburn edge. And here's what I'm talking about, like a big physical dude who holds up at the edge position. Still gets to the quarterback, and you're talking making the quarterback throw off platform and make him throw off weird angles and make him scared. You want to get the quarterback scared in the backfield. You want him to be uncertain. And what's a better way to make a quarterback uncertain than to have a monster like Marlon Davidson? Let's see if I can. Where's his weight? Where's his goddamn? What's his position? Here. So 6'3", 297. So this is a man that's damn near 300 pounds. Imagine having him on your edge. That offensive lineman is going nowhere. He is in control at that point. And, watching the tape, super sturdy. That's what I'm looking for. I want my edge defenders to be able to dictate. I want to be able to get to the quarterback and dictate what the offensive lineman is doing, right? I want the defensive line to be the bullies. I want at least 1,000 pounds on my defensive front at all times. And you got a guy at 300 pounds on your defensive end, like as your defensive end right there, as your pass rusher, good luck. No one is going to be bigger than us. No one is going to bully us. And I just think, we'll talk about it later. We'll keep going down my top 10. All right, so at number 9, I have my first kind of sleeper guy. I still have not had a chance to see everybody, have not watched everybody's game film, but this is the first guy that I watched, kind of like a late round guy where it looks like it's an undraftable fellow, and he came out and balled out. At least jumped off the tape to me. I put a star next to his name because I think he's going to be available in the late round, and I think he's going to be a good player. So number 9 on my list is Joe Graziano, 6'4", 275, out of Northwestern. I've heard nobody talking about this guy, but please watch his tape. Watch him versus Stanford. He balled out. And ugly build. The guy looks like Mike Wazowski. Round body, skinny legs. But he wins most of his reps and uses a high motor. Like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who wins their reps, and that's what he does. And he does it with a high motor and his size. He usually wins on his second move, but he does it with excellent leverage and some violent hands. And he's always getting towards the QB. Super sturdy in the run game. He uses his size, so it makes sense. 275, especially being at Northwestern. So he has gone up against the smaller competition. But when it's dealing with these guys, I think he leads. I think he's got the record at Northwestern for most sacks in a career. And I think this guy, he's like I said, he's gonna be a late round draft pick who I think shows tremendous upside. He reminds me a lot of Max Crosby from last year, but I think with even more upside. I love his motor, and he's just one of these guys where each year there's someone that's like, man, that guy is good, but just look at him. He doesn't look like he should be good, but he is. He is just one of these guys, just a high motor white dude coming in off the edge, and that's what he is. And I think he is going to outplay his draft stock. So I put a star next to this guy because I think he's going to be available, and I think the Ravens need to draft this guy. He seems like he's got the right mentality to get after the quarterback and to play NFL football, especially being at Northwestern, playing against smaller competition. Will it translate? Yeah, I really think it will. Like I said, he's got the size already, so that's not the issue. So that's it's another option there. All right, so number 10 on my list, is that where I was? Yes, so the last guy on my list is Darrell Taylor. This is the edge defender out of Tennessee. See if I can find his information here. I had it opened up, but then I changed the screen. Here we go. Yeah, Tennessee 6'4", 259. So once again, a bigger feller. He was just, listen, these bigger guys, they just hold up on the edge, and that's what I'm looking for. I don't want to see breakdowns on the edge. If you don't get to the quarterback, that's fine. Sometimes, like I said, the quarterback gets rid of the ball too quickly, depending on the offensive scheme, or sometimes they just run the other way in the run game, and you just can't get any production. But I want you to be a wall. I want the defensive line to be a wall, and I think he could be, another kind of one of these late round guys. I just, in general, this list, I don't think it's a deep class. So, once you get past like 3 or 4 guys, it's like, I'd be comfortable with the Ravens drafting him in like the 4th, 5th round, So I think eventually, so that's my top 10 list. Darrell Taylor, guy to Tennessee. Didn't really tell you much about him, but athletic, big, gets to the quarterback, sturdy in the run game. I'm not really giving any negatives on this guy or all of these guys, but that's just the list I have right now. Like for the Ravens, this would be my top pass rushing list, like who I think would be the best for the Ravens. But a lot of these guys, it just doesn't make sense to draft them where I think they will be drafted. So eventually, at some point, I'm going to try to get these guys into like sort of a tier system, into a like round system. So like, all right, if the Ravens take them in this round, I'd be happy, right? And just kind of do that slowly but surely with everybody at every position. So that way, when I start doing some mock drafts, I got like, okay, like this guy here, and I find my guys, put the stars next to the guys, have a list of guys with stars and then a double star next to the guys who I really want the Ravens to draft. And like Joe Graziano, he's one of those guys for me. A late round guy. When you're drafting in the late round, you got to find my guys, the guys who are going to ball out for no reason. No one else sees it coming. And I just think he's going to be one of those guys. But like I said, this is a huge position for the Ravens to draft and try to fix in free agency. This is a huge question mark for the Ravens, all of these guys. And we need to improve, So anyone the Ravens get in the draft, they have to be better than what we already have. And that's what, it seems like some people forget that or something, where it's like, oh, well, this guy, he'll be available. We could get this guy, but it's like, is he even better than what we got? And so that's why I want to see the Ravens fix this in free agency. I think there's enough people, enough free agents that are out there that I think could work. There's your highest priced guys, Shaquille Barrett, bring back Matthew Judon. I think, let's see who else. Bud Dupree is going to be expensive. But, those are some outside linebackers. What was I looking at? Here's a defensive end. Like, I'm looking at defensive end types because I think that size, being big and being able to hold up on the defensive line, I think is a huge asset. Like I said, I want 1,000 pounds across the defensive line. So if you got 4 guys that weigh 275 plus, that's 1,100 pounds right there. So basically everyone on your defensive line needs to be 275. And really their goal is to stop the run and to get after the quarterback. And that's what a defensive line's purpose is, right? There's all sorts of different things. You can stack up, you can watch your gap, do all that fun stuff. But really, when it comes to the stat sheets and what people see and what people love, it's the sacks, it's the QB hits, right? It's the getting your arms up and getting in passing lanes, knocking the ball down, batted passes, right? And just all-around dominance. We like seeing monsters, and that's why I really did kind of focus on that style of player, because I think that's what works in this league. And I think at some point it's a cheaper way to solve the pass rush and defensive line problem than any other way, because you can find big, strong, physical role player type guys later on in the draft that you can fit into your scheme that still helps you, but not at that premium. Hey, this is a first round pass rusher, and then once he has like 7 sacks a year, then he's going to ask for 15 mil a year, and you're not going to be able to keep him, and you'll never be able to keep that sort of cycle up. But at least if you're grabbing these big guys, you're grabbing these bullies on the defensive line. The offensive line can't dictate what you guys do. So you're able to kind of control the game with these big guys, and that's what I want for the Ravens. Like, I can't say it any more than that. And it's just, this is such a huge position of need right now, especially with not knowing what Matthew Judon's doing. So everyone's talking about like early on in the draft for these pass rushers. But, I think we've already kind of built our team in the way where it's back to front. We already have the secondary in place, so we just need these role-playing defensive linemen to really, boost our defense into the next stratosphere. And so when you think about, I think it's just a cheap way to do it too. Like it's cheaper to build that way. And I know it would be amazing if we could have like amazing pass rushers all across the line, but you can't always get that in the draft. You're going to have to be bad for so long to get, like 4 like legit like interior pass rushers or outside pass rushers, anybody getting to the quarterback, like seeing what the 49ers have done. Now everyone wants to follow that recipe. Everyone wants 4 first round like defensive linemen getting after the quarterback, because look, it works, right? They did excellent. They didn't win the Super Bowl, but they were excellent. And the thing is, they had to be so bad for so many years to the point where they're in the position to draft those guys. For 4 years that they were in a position to draft amazing players. And I think, if instead of doing that, trying to get these excellent pass rushers, you just get really big physical defensive linemen, you can replenish your roster in a cheaper way, do it more easily through the draft, because these, if you're big and tall and physical, but you don't have like necessarily all the pass rush moves, or you're slow, you're going to be you're going to fall lower in the draft. And so you're going to be available for a good team like the Ravens to put you in a good scheme and have you ball out and play an excellent role in their system. I just keep thinking about Jihad Ward and that type of player, and that's the player that I want. So a lot of these guys, they kind of follow that criteria. But, if you're looking at free agency, there's a guy out there like Jadeveon Clowney, who I know a lot of Ravens fans are interested in. You want to pay him $20 million a year. You don't want to pay Matt Judon, but you're willing to pay him. I think Jadeveon Clowney would definitely be a better option to pay. If they were going to make the same money, then hell yes. Let's go pay Jadeveon Clowney. But he's going to cost too much, right? But if you think about it, if the Ravens, instead of having to deal with the draft and looking over all of these players, if the Ravens want to pay to play, if they want to pay to win, they can do that. I think if the Ravens went and paid for Jadeveon Clowney, they would have one of the best defenses in the league. They already have the secondary, and that would give us a bona fide, disruptive presence all across the defensive line, because he can kind of play anywhere. I think, normally you can't pay for someone to fix your team, even though it wouldn't really be fixing it. It would just be adding and, making our team better. But, in this situation, you can actually pay to be better. I think Jadeveon Clowney would be a huge boon to our defense, and I think it would solve all of our problems, and it would cause us to like not even have to draft a guy. Where we could wait till the fifth or sixth round to grab my guy, Joe Graziano, where you could wait to the fifth round and just grab a developmental guy because you sign Jadeveon Clowney, that you're gonna have him for a couple years, so you're gonna have your pass rush kind of solved for a couple years, and I think it'd be a great idea. He's younger than I thought. I keep thinking Jadeveon Clowney's like over 30, but he's really not. He's young. He's still young. He's going into his prime, but it's just a lot of money. It's easy to say, "Ooh, yeah, just pay the 20 fucking mil." That's tough, man. It's a lot of money, and I think a lot of teams are going to be thinking the same thing. Like, hey, we can solve all our pass rush problems with this one guy, and I think the Ravens are also in that camp. They do have money, but I don't know if they'd be willing to do it all on that one guy. Right player, right DeCosta. Right, Eric DeCosta. But I think I'll give you some other names that I find pretty interesting. Defensive end, let's go. All right. What the? All right, here we go. All right, so I'm going to put these guys into QB hits. So everyone knows Chris Jones, right? Super athletic. I doubt he's going to get out of Kansas City, but if he does, it's going to be tough. He's going to be super expensive. Also, another guy, Eric Armstead, definitely probably not going to sign with the 49ers again. They have so many guys that they have to re-sign. I don't know if they want to start with him, if they want to be, hey, yep, come back. But he had, 19 QB hits, 10 sacks, 54 tackles, which is quite a bit of tackles compared to everybody else on this list. I think it's actually the most. So he's just super active. If you want to pay somebody a lot of money, you can get that guy. Or what about Robert Quinn? No, I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about Robert Quinn from Dallas, but he's super productive all along the defensive linemen. Yannick Ngakoue, Leonard Williams, Jason Pierre-Paul, as an older guy. I mean, we still have Pernell McPhee, which I hope they re-sign. But you think you get a guy like Pernell McPhee, maybe a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul, and maybe, let's see. I haven't really looked at all these names yet. There was another one. I think you might have been on a different list. But, let's say you get two veteran guys. You get like a Robert Griffin, right? Robert Quinn. You get these two dominant players. I don't know if you can get them at a cheap price. So that way, when you're going into the draft, you don't even have to worry about pass rush. Because where their draft capital makes sense with like where they're ranked totally, it's not until later on. And I would love Vitor Gross-Matos. I would love Clavon Chason. I would love AJ Epinesa. But I don't think those guys, they might be available in the first round, but that's the only time they're going to be available. And I don't want the Ravens to draft a guy that high. And I know edge defender, pass rush, it's a major need. So it's like, they better put a first round draft pick into it or a second round draft pick. It's just some of those guys, it's just what else you could get, it's not as good. You got a best player available, right? You got to do that. And it's just, I don't know if some of these guys are that way. Where the draft value matches their level of play. I mean, there were some other guys in the draft that, didn't quite make my top 10. So I had like Julian Okwara, out of Notre Dame. I was looking at Terrell Lewis, and I wasn't all that impressive. But his running mate, on the other side of him, Anthony Jennings, he was the one that kept showing up. One name that you probably noticed I didn't say, Curtis Weaver, almost forgot completely. I was watching his game versus, who was it? Who was he playing? It was like one of the bigger schools that he played. I think it might have been Stanford. No, who was it? It doesn't matter. I was watching him play. He's got excellent hands. He's got excellent size. He's meeting my criteria, right? But I'm watching him play, and he's getting pushed around by some tackles, whatever. What happens every once in a while. But he's trying to get off the block, and he can't make the tackle. He's got his hands up, he's got control, and he gets off and goes to make the tackle and just misses. And it happened so often in this game, I just took him off my list. If you're not going to be able to tackle, you're not going to be on the list. You're not draftable. At least as an early round guy. That's for damn sure. Now, he's got upside. You see the pass rush moves. You see sometimes he can be dominant, but he doesn't have that dog mentality. That's kind of also what I'm looking for. It's just, it's one of the criterias. This is not a full-fledged out list, but it's all over the place. That's really what's going on here. This list, it's all over the place. I have not seen everybody. I have, just kind of started going balls deep into it, but these are the guys that I like. The purpose is I hope I find a list of guys, at each and every position, find a bunch of guys that I really like and like at a certain spot that I think are going to be available, so that eventually I kind of build my own draft board, and so that way I find, my guys that I think will be great, because sometimes it's, this guy, you start measuring the value, and that's sometimes when you measure the value, you forget who you're drafting, and you don't get the right guy if you're just drafting based on value. You could get this guy now, and it's like, yeah, that's great value, but also it's the wrong player. It's the same way in fantasy football. You draft a guy, and you're like, oh man, that's such a great value at that pick, but hey, it's also not the right guy. I'd rather have my guy than the wrong guy at a good price. So, this was kind of all over the place. I am not a scout, so really just, attempting, trying to get this right. I did a pretty good job last year. The guys who ended up having good years, having good rookie years, I liked them through the draft process, so I was glad to see a lot of that come through. So hopefully I'm going to try to replicate it. But this was just the first iteration, so just the edge defenders, just because I know that's a huge question mark as of right now for Ravens fans. So hopefully, I said some stuff about a player, or my list was informative in some way. I didn't put out all the best information, didn't really do professional write-ups, but that's where my list stands right now. We're going to be getting back into the groove of things, so maybe it'll flow a little bit better as I screw up that word, as I say it. So with that being said, I want to thank you for listening, and you Ravens. Also, I don't know what position I'm going to do next. I'm probably going to do wide receiver next. Just go offense, defense, and slowly but surely, if you listen to the whole process, you'll understand where I'm coming from, and you'll understand why I like the guys I like. All right? So with that being said, once again, go Ravens, and I will talk to you again later.